Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Foster, Dr. Foster, I should say, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to follow up on the chair's discussion about the need to identify bad actors. How is this actually implemented in DeFi right now? First, how do you identify them? In a system where the underlying protocol is that of a permissionless, anonymous, self-hosted custody of assets. How do you identify and how do you effectively ban bad actors, or is there no such concept as bad actors in DeFi? I just go down the line, and if you could describe, how it's implemented, if at all.
Sure, happy to do that. Thank you for the question, Congressman. Our fund actually has invested in a company that is building what's called zero knowledge proof protocols.
But that's not what's there right now. I understand, and there's a bunch. We had hearings on
Sure.
homomorphic encryption. It's not ready for prime time. And with the technology that exists today, how do you do it?
Well, this particular company has launched a product. It's actually being used in the marketplace now. So they haven't gotten market share at this point, but they are growing significantly.
And there's also fundamental problems with the zero knowledge proofs. You still need a trusted third party to control the privacy budget on these things. I've looked at the mathematics behind there. I program blockchain, and by the way, Ms. Tonelli, I appreciate your efforts to educate Congress on this, which is a challenge. And if you ever would like to learn how to program blockchain, I would be happy to teach you. If you go next and say, how do you implement identification and banning of bad actors in an anonymous, self-hosted situation?
Thank you so much for your question, Congressman. I think there are three primary ways that it happens today. First, there's an organization called the Security Alliance, which is an organic group that monitors and works in public-private partnership with law enforcement to watch for hacks and engage in other types of activities.
But when you've identified a bad actor and the bad actor reappears with an anonymous self-hosted wallet, how do you identify the fact that you're a bad actor?
Law enforcement and blockchain analytics tools are actually able to trace a lot of this very transparently. And
A lot isn't enough. You need to be able to trace all of it, and that's, I don't believe, technically possible.
Our current system under the BSA is not 100%, but I think we should be aiming for that in the DeFi ecosystem, and there are a number of ways to handle that. I've actually made one such proposal in a paper that I co-authored, published in January, where we identify a new category called critical communications transmitters that will take on enhanced risk mitigation measures for financial integrity.
Okay. Now, when you've identified a bad actor, how does DeFi come together to say this is a bad actor, we're going to ban you? How do you even trace that person when people are operating multiple identities anonymously?
Sure, the critical communications transmitters will bring immediate reports to FinCEN. They won't look identical to SARS, but they'll have the type of information that will allow FinCEN and other law enforcement to be able to trace both the immediate wallet you're talking about and anything that emanates out from that as well.
But how do you trace all users of anonymous wallets? If one person's operating 12 anonymous wallets, how does that dealt with in this system?
I can say that through public-private partnerships and working with the FBI and DOJ and a number of these matters, they're actually able to trace wallets very quickly and much more quickly than the decades that it's taken to trace illicit funds in the traditional financial world.
Does that apply to the most deliberately anonymous financial products that have been made, which are made by design very hard? And this rapidly gets into classified stuff, and so if you can't talk about that, that's all right.
I can't talk too deeply about it, but I will say that funds from some of the worst actors are frozen today and unable to be moved given the immediate identification that has happened both with industry and law enforcement working together on these issues. And
that when you freeze someone's fund, you freeze their activities in every one of the anonymous wallets that they control?
You certainly freeze the illicit activities, the illicit funds that you've identified.
That you've identified, okay. So there is no way to ban a bad actor. They just pop up in some other guise with some other set of self-hosted wallets?
That may be, but
okay, thank you. There are also questions of governance here. And Mr. Hayes, there's a fundamental guarantee that people who are investing in anything in the regulated markets, in the U.S. at least, that when you invest into something, there isn't a cabal of people secretly controlling what you've just invested in that are going to rip you off. It seems to me that also can't really be a guarantee in a situation where people have anonymous self-hosted wallets that control the voting. Yeah, so how do you view this as a problem, and are there any ways to fix it?
Well, briefly, I think it is a problem. You see concentration of ownership of governance tokens across platforms, particularly with venture capital funds who arguably are dictating how these programs are run, and that's for their benefit, not necessarily other retail investors.
Thank you, and my time is up, and yield back.